welcome. Thank you for being here. My name is Panayota Papadopoulos. I use she, her pronouns. I am the training and education advocate here at Turning Point of Lehigh Valley. We are very happy to have I want to not mess up your title, so I'm going to let you introduce yourself because I know it recently changed. That's why it's not that I don't know who our directors are, but I just want to make sure that the title is correct. But we are very glad to have Miriam Rivera with us today. So Miriam, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit, what you do here?
Sure. My name is Miriam, and I am the Supportive Services Director. Um, I've been with Turning Point for a little bit over 30 years. Just talking about what kind of work do I do here? I oversee the community, the client advocates, sorry, titles have changed, the client advocate team. That is the team of advocates that provide supportive services, empowerment counseling. They facilitate groups. They answer the helpline. They are the ones that provide some of the direct service. So I oversee that team, and we do all kinds of things here, do whatever it takes. To make sure that the services that we provide are the best quality services, that the services are compassionate and caring in their nature, and that they're effective.
Yeah, absolutely. So today we're going to just kind of have an open Q&A. I have some prepared questions for Miriam of things that I've been asked in the community, things that have come up over time that I've been here. But if you have any questions, all we ask is that you do not share any personally identifying information. We'll keep questions at a general level of support, of guidance. And then if you have any specific questions for yourself or a family member, friend, loved one, you can always contact our 24/7 helpline, which is 610-437-3369. But that being said, we are very excited for the conversation and to kind of get into it. So, um, I guess before we get into everything. Number one, I just want to reiterate that abuse is about power and control, right? Is really what it comes down to. And, we see this pattern over time of power and control that the abuser is trying to control the survivor. Um, but that being said, what is something you wish more people knew about the work that you do, being the supportive services director? No pressure. I know there's probably a lot.
There is a lot, but knowing that the safety planning and the safety planning that we do, the supportive services that we provide, the support that we provide, the survivor or individuals that call us, being able to walk with them, alongside them, not to walk in front of them to take the lead, not to walk behind them, pushing them along. Excuse me, not to walk behind them, pushing them along, but actually walk beside them, so that as they make their decisions, in supporting them and creating a safety plan and creating that plan of action, it is actually their goals and their next steps, not ours. And just being able to remove the obstacles that people have, being able to provide the support as they remove the obstacles and gain themselves sense of self again, being able to claim back their identity and their own power, and being able to help people to understand that they don't deserve to live in abuse. They deserve to be safe, and just beginning from there, letting them know that they have rights, um, to manage their own life and to make their own decisions.
Mhm. Yeah. You mentioned about safe, right? Feeling safe, safety planning. What, for someone that may have grown up in a home or around people that maybe weren't as safe as they could have been, um, it can be hard, I think, to recognize what safety is, what it looks like. How do you support survivors in kind of guiding them towards number one, recognizing who is a safe person or what is safety. And number two, like what are safety planning type things that you would recommend for anyone going through abuse? I keep giving
So
you all these big questions.
yeah,
Sorry. Go
no,
ahead.
that's okay. So to answer your first question, you're right about many survivors have witnessed or lived in abuse from childhood. They
Mhm.
don't know anything else. It has always been some type of abuse in their life. And then as they grow up and become adults and engage in relationships, they sometimes continue to relate to people or
Yeah.
form relationships with people that are abusive. And it's
'Cause it
seen as
feels normal.
normal.
Yeah, it
It
feels normal.
becomes a normal.
Yeah.
This happens in all relationships.
Mhm.
Um, and, it's a matter of giving them that other side of this is what a healthy relationship looks like. Because I know that many victims of abuse, many survivors of abuse
Mhm.
want a healthy relationship. They just don't know what one looks like a lot of the
Mhm.
times because they never had one. How could you
Mhm.
do something that you've never witnessed, that you never seen? How do you do something are not familiar with?
Mhm.
So, talking about healthy relationships and talking about what kinds of things are in a healthy relationship and talking about the characteristics of a healthy person. And, you know, I think that what I call the DB 101 sessions are so
Mhm.
important because they educate people as to the patterns of abuse, the cycle of abuse, um, educate people about how does a person take power and control over another. Um, which anytime that we have done that, it's like, so the reaction is, I'm not crazy.
Mhm.
Um, so this is actually happening because the other thing that a person does when they're abusing is the gaslighting, making it
Mhm.
seem like what's happening is not happening and
Mhm.
twisting words around and making it sound not even close to what the person says.
Mhm.
That's where we start the emotional safety plan by clarifying what's real and what isn't, what's
Mhm.
normal and what isn't. When we do that, then we are stepping into their reality and making it more of the person that is abusing you is responsible for their behavior. And this is a real thing that you're living in a
Mhm.
world of that was created by an abusive person.
Mhm.
And you're the same person trying to live in that world that doesn't make any sense.
Mhm.
Abusive people have their own logic and they have their own rules that don't apply to them.
Rules that
Uh,
often change. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So in safety planning, it depends on the situation. There are many types of safety plan, emotional safety plan for the person that is not being physically abused, but is emotionally and psychologically and financially abused.
Mhm.
Um, Creating the stalking safety planning for people that are followed around or GPS are put or they're tracked by their phone or, there are so many types of safety planning also for people that want to leave,
Mhm.
creating a safety plan for a safe exit.
Mhm.
That is a plan that is also put in place for a person that, live with their abuser and is not ready to leave. How do they keep safe within that relationship?
Right.
So there are different types of safety plan that you do, and you have to also be very creative uh,
Mhm.
and think outside the box when you're
Mhm.
making safety planning, depending on the situation.
Mhm. I appreciate the fact that you immediately started with that emotional safety plan piece because you're right. There's so much of abuse that can mess with your mind and how you view yourself, how you view your reality, your situation. So even just being able to separate, like, no, these actions are not yours, so you do not take accountability for them, right? The accountability belongs to the person who did the action. And just helping kind of distinguish that line, I imagine is really takes some time, right, to parse through that, but at the same time, is very important and impactful. What are some of those early warning signs you think that people may often miss?
Um, you know, an abusive person is very charming.
Mm-hmm.
That's what makes them so hard to define. But many a times that what people call the love bombing,
Mm-hmm.
um, wanting to spend a lot of time on the phone or with the person, which is very flattering. I mean, for someone that you're engaging in a relationship, for them to want to spend all the time on the phone or calling you where you are, or, I want to spend time with you. The love bombing feels amazing a lot of the times. They're showering you with attention and gifts and things. The that it's a very hard thing to define, but it comes so hard, fast, and heavy
Mm-hmm.
that it could be taken as a very positive, wow, this is a great person and they really like me. And, all of this attention, all of the um, affection, it really makes you feel closer to that person, but does not allow you to see who that person really is. They're
Mm-hmm.
not allowing you to look behind the scenes as to who they really are.
Mm-hmm.
So, be careful with that. Trust your instinct. A lot of the times we tend to disregard that gut instinct that tells us something doesn't seem right. This looks too good to be true. So those are some of the things to move. A lot of the times they what they complimented at one time about your personality, they tend to kind of like blend with your values, your beliefs. They have the same values and beliefs. They like the same things you like. They want to do the same things you do. And then they move the post.
Mm-hmm.
Once the relationship is established and they have defined that now you're really into that relationship and that you really like them and that you really want to make the relationship work. A lot of the times, what things they value about you, now they're criticized.
Mm-hmm.
If they value the fact that you're so friendly and you're so outgoing and you have such talk with everybody and you have so ease and you always
I
look
don't,
so beautiful.
you have too many friends. I don't like that. You're not spending enough
Absolutely.
time with me now. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So, you're too friendly.
Mm-hmm.
You're always talking to people. So now
Mm-hmm.
the things they complimented, they become an issue now.
Yeah.
That's a sign.
Yeah.
The isolation
Mm-hmm.
is one of the most important things in a controlling and abusive relationship.
Yeah.
Little by little, they insert themselves in every aspect of your life at the
Mm-hmm.
point that you're not going alone anymore anywhere. You're not
Mm-hmm.
meeting with friends, you're not meeting with family. Soon enough, they start looking at, criticizing your friends. So they're putting things in your head, or I don't like that friend because, they're, excuse the horrible words, but
Mm-hmm.
they're a whore, or they always want to be with other people, or
Mm-hmm.
this friend likes you, or that family member doesn't like me, or
Yeah.
they try to build that wedge in
Yeah.
between your relationships, your community, the things you like. If you like certain kind of music, they don't like that music. If you want to read, they don't like you to read. They want to watch TV.
Yeah.
It's just, it starts pulling you away from the things that you value and appreciate. And soon enough, you're going against your values, you're isolating, embarrassing you in front of friends and family, doing or saying things that embarrass you in some kind of way. That is a way, fighting before or after you visit
Yeah.
someone. Those are way of isolation. Um, Claiming ownership over you early in
Mm-hmm.
the relationship. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
you're mine.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Or, their opinion include what you wear, giving what you put on, where you go, who you talk
Mhm.
to. That starts little by little. And it doesn't start all at once. So it's really
Mhm.
hard to define. They just want to go everywhere with you. And then all of a sudden, you're not going anywhere.
Right.
Uh,
And at the
so,
start, that too feels very, like you said, like the love bombing, but it doesn't feel like love bombing at the start. It feels like, wow, they really want to be involved in my life. They really want to get to know me and know the things that I do and like enjoy time together. So it feels very normal, very healthy. Like it looks very similar at the start and it can be hard to decipher. So you're absolutely right. I'm sorry to cut you off, but yeah.
no, that's okay. I think that this is the two of us doing this. I don't think that
Yeah.
you're cutting me off at all. We both have experience and things to share. Also, the blaming everyone else for their shortcomings. It's always somebody else's fault. The
Always.
boss didn't like me, or your family doesn't like me, or you made me do this. The blaming, they never take responsibility for their own actions.
Yeah.
Uh, Disrespecting others,
Yeah.
even people they don't know. Um, be mindful of how people react to them when they walk in a room. Do people feel welcoming towards them? Do people gather about them and have smile in their faces because they walked in? Or do the people recoil back and kind of like
Mhm.
just don't welcome them as well? Or do people seem
Mhm.
tense around them?
Mhm.
Be mindful of that because those,
Mhm.
especially family members and people that know them, be mindful because sometimes
Mhm.
that's also a sign that there's something wrong.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah. No, that's interesting too, the body language aspect of it, just paying attention to those little things, not just from others, but even in yourself. Like, do
mhm,
I feel like, hey, my body or, my gut is trying to tell me, pause for a second, like take a minute to take this in, process this. Is this what I'm thinking it is? Is this too fast, too soon, too good to be true, right? And I wanted to mention that too because as you mentioned in the beginning, that emotional safety and that we often see love bombing right at the start. If I come from an environment where maybe I've never witnessed what healthy love looks like, feels like, sounds like, a lot of times those early love bombing things where they try to stay involved feels just as chaotic, like a roller coaster, as my normal life. So I might think, okay, again, this is normal. And once you start to get into a healthier relationship, it's almost like, oh, wait, this feels boring. Is this
mhm.
normal? What is this? Is this? So yeah, even just getting used to that like feeling of what healthy versus unhealthy might look like. Yeah.
Another thing I want to mention is they're usually very secretive
Mhm.
in their approaches to things. They even like relationships usually evolve into little by little, you get to know more and more about the person. With an
Mhm.
abusive person, usually that doesn't happen. Um, you don't know any more about them a year from now than when you first started.
Yeah.
It's almost like they keep the secretive life that they have that they don't share.
Mhm.
Um, so be mindful of that, like sudden disappearances or, things that they don't want to be questioned about, things that they don't share with you. You don't get
Mhm.
to know more about them. This is in
Mhm.
a normal relationship. You get to know more about your partners. You get to meet family. You get to meet their friends. You get to meet what they like, what they don't like, what are their hobbies, their friends. Um, that is just there is just so much that I can tell you about this
Mhm.
particular topic. But just giving you some of the things that
Yeah.
you can look
Yeah.
out for.
For sure. Yeah. And, like we said, a lot of it kind of starts out from that early charming dynamic that can be very difficult to decipher. And then over time, it's kind of the layers are pulled back and we start to see who the person really is and how they're trying to kind of slowly take control and take power away from the survivor. Um,
Being in
God,
love or telling you that they love you a week or two from the moment they meet
yes.
you. It's
Yeah.
that moving so fast that it feels so uncomfortable. It's almost like you have no control over how fast the relationship is going because they can also make you feel guilty about, putting a stop or putting the brakes or setting boundaries.
Hmm.
Um, that is also, it's very difficult to manage that,
Yeah.
especially if the person is a passive aggressive person where where you see the force, but they're telling you in the same kind of like um, tone of voice that is calm. And
Hmm.
that's very hard to define
Hmm.
as abuse.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Pacing is huge, is another
mm,
big piece of it. Just trying to rush that connection, um, to help establish that. Um, I think that's a good lead in into a question which always comes up and is always hard to answer, but important. A lot of times when people in the community, when loved ones see their people, their loved ones, their family, friends in abusive relationships, right? The question is always, why don't you just leave, right? Why are you staying with them? Um, and I think that number one, that's not fair because it puts the blame of the abuse on the survivor and they're not the ones doing the action. But number two, like it really just, doesn't take into account that that might not be the best choice for everyone. So how do you, yeah, people like often judge survivors even for staying. So what would you say is important to understand about that level of choice and voice and empowering a survivor to make their own decisions? But like what makes it difficult sometimes for people to leave or to stay?
it's all about that power and control, that isolation, not being able to leave their home or not being able to connect with other people. They're losing their connections, losing their community, in being in an isolated place where you're being psychologically, emotionally abused, verbally abused, and many a times the sexual assault. Um, that you're being physically abused, that you're being controlled to such extremes. It really sets a mind for a survivor to be on survivor mode. Once that you start, know that power and control is about conditioning a person to react in a certain way by punishing,
Mhm,
by the constant punishing,
mhm,
whether it's verbal, emotional, psychological, whether it's withdrawing emotionally from that person as a form of control. So know that that abusive person has an agenda, and the agenda is power and control in all
mhm,
aspects of a person's life. Um, Many a times I find that survivors stay in their abusive relationship because one, love unconditional.
mhm,
It's kind of hard to turn off, your heart and say, well, I'm not gonna love this person anymore because they're abusing me.
right,
And love unconditional is still there.
yep,
Many a times they have children, um, and the abusive person sometimes say, well, you're going to lose your children because you're not a good mom or you're not a good dad, or whoever the abusive person is, using the children, sabotaging their
mhm,
relationship with their children. Um,
mhm,
that sometimes convinces the victim that they're not being a good parent. Sometimes they stay because they want to defend and protect their children because they are the middle person. They are the ones that stand in between.
mm,
They are the ones that take the brunt of the abuse.
mm,
Therefore, the children can be safe. Unfortunately, the courts grant custody and sometimes share custody to an abusive parent. And now, the fear. of what the
Mm-hmm.
children have to go through with that abusive person keeps
Mm-hmm.
a person in a relationship. Also, the financial. If the person
Mm-hmm.
is not allowed to work, or even if they work, do they manage their own money?
Yeah.
They're not allowed to manage their own money. Without money, where are you gonna go? What you
Right.
gonna do?
Right.
Society doesn't make it any easier for a person to live either because of the judgment,
Yeah.
because of the blame,
Mm-hmm.
because of um, you must have done something wrong. Sometimes our own family values and beliefs keep us trapped.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're a woman and a woman makes a man, and you need to stay. If you're married, you need to stay in that relationship because
Mm-hmm.
you have children and you sacrifice, and that's what you need to do. A lot of the times, our own values and beliefs keep us
Yeah.
in place. You know, there are so many reasons why a person say not having the means to get out. Um, where do you go? What do you
Yeah.
do? Um, right now, what keeps coming to mind is affordable housing.
Mm-hmm.
Not being able
Especially
to
now.
afford,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely, not being able to afford the exorbitant amount of money that you have to pay, plus the cost of living.
Well,
All of those things. I wish that people will ask more of why does a person that says they love their partner chooses to abuse them? That
yeah.
is the question
That
that
should be the
we should be
question.
asking.
Yeah.
Because then we are keeping that abusive person accountable for their behavior.
Correct. Period. End point. No, you're right though. It really needs to be flipped. We need to stop asking survivors, why don't you just leave? Why are you staying? And flip it on the abuser. Why are you continuing to abuse someone that you say that you supposedly love? Right. Um, one big thing that I've heard, and there's quite a few societal comments, myths, whatever you want to call them. But one big one that I often hear is like, well, my partner is abusive to me, but they're not abusive to the children. They're still a good parent. What would you say to something like that? Or are there other myths or, concerning societal statements that maybe we need to address?
You know, that addressing what you just mentioned about, the abusive person is only abusive to me and not to the children. Children living in domestic violence homes are being emotionally and psychologically abused.
Mhm.
Even if the abuse is not directed at them, the hearing, the witnessing of the physical abuse, that is psychological abuse and trauma for that
Yeah.
child. So the abusing the parent of those children is abuse against those children because now that parent is not able to function to the level that the children deserve for them to
Mhm.
function. Um, it actually, a lot of the times, it parentifies children when that caretaker cannot function
Mhm.
emotionally or physically because of injuries, because of their emotional state, because of depression, because anxiety, panic attacks, or whatever it is that is happening to them that are part of the effects of the abuse. I've seen children take over, taking care of their siblings, cooking, doing things that children shouldn't be doing, living in
Mhm.
fear. Um, I have remember someone telling me, "Oh, but they respect the other person more than me."
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not respect, that's fear.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, I totally disagree with children living under those kinds of conditions are also being emotionally and psychologically abused. And there is trauma that's being created. It's also creating a set of values that
Mhm.
are going to work against them when they become adults and start forming their own relationships, because this is the pattern, this is the blueprint they have to make choices and make decisions for their own life. Um, we see so much of the effects of the abuse on our children in the schools. And, you know, I remember a young man who broke into a car. My heart goes out to him still. 14-year-old uh, broke into a car just because he couldn't stay in the house
Mm,
because of the assault, and he got arrested. He didn't drive
wow.
the car anywhere. It was wintertime. He just wanted
Wow.
somewhere warm to sleep,
Safe. Yeah.
and that's what he did.
Wow.
So just know that sometimes when we say, "Oh, the children are not being abused," oh, you're so wrong about that. Uh, Children know more than what you think. Especially sometimes I fear people, but that he never argues or she never argues in front of the kids. Um, hmm, Children hear when you think they're sleeping, they're awake, listening.
They see the aftermath. They feel
Absolutely,
vibrations. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And the atmosphere in a home where violence and abuse and psychological and verbal and emotional abuse are happening is very
Mhm.
different than a healthy home.
Yeah. It's interesting as you're talking, I'm thinking about, so I used to be, for background, I used to be a middle school, high school teacher. And at my school, we did this thing called Challenge Day, where people came in and, had more of these in-depth conversations about kids and what they were experiencing and trying to provide that support, but fun too. And they did this activity called Cross the Line, where, um, they would share a statement, and then whoever felt like they had experienced it would step over a line. And one of the statements was, I've never had a childhood. And in my mind, and for a split second, I was like, well, who's never had a childhood? All of us have been children. What does that mean? But as I started to watch kids kind of cross the line, students of mine, and start to, that was like the first moment that I had really seen them just let go. And they just started like sobbing and holding each other and kind of like that parentified child, like that they had to, and I don't know specifically what their circumstances were, but they had to take over for the parents that weren't necessarily providing that healthy, safe space. So, yeah, it is for someone experiencing abuse in the home, even if it's not directed at the kids, it still absolutely affects the kids for sure. Um, yeah, sorry. Are there other, I don't know, societal phrases, comments that you really hate that you think we need to make sure that we mention?
You know, abuse is only physical.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that myth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, People think if you don't see any bruises or if you don't see, the person doesn't assault another, then it's not. On words, the wind would carry over the words, and words don't hurt, and all of that stick and stone don't hurt my bone, all of that stuff, that we say that it just minimizes how serious the psychological, the emotional, the other types of abuse, the silent treatment, the financial
Mm-hmm.
abuse, all of those things play a part in it. And I think that people think that the physical abuse is the only type of abuse. It isn't. There are so many other types of abuse um, that are, as devastating.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that I have had many people tell me when I was counseling where I wish that this person would have slapped me in the face or punched me in the stomach instead of saying the words that they said, because the
Oh,
words are what stay longer. Those un invisible wounds that people have
yeah.
are so much deeper
Mm-hmm.
and so
Yeah.
much devastating. So, you know, please understand that just because a person doesn't have bruises, that doesn't mean that abuse doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm. Would you say in your experience that those who have the most long-term effects are those who have experienced more of that emotional abuse? Or what would you say has like the longest impact? I mean, obviously all of it is not okay, and is impactful and can change your life forever. Um,
Absolutely.
is there anything that like really stands out to you or that you see repeatedly that takes more time to process, to heal from, to whatnot?
Words.
Yeah.
Words are powerful. Um, they can build or destroy a person. That's why I'm so always so mindful with the words that I choose. Um, Words are so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And the verbal, the psychological, the gaslighting, all of those things can create so much havoc in a person's mental state and their physical well-being. Um, those are the ones that people struggle with the most.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I know that physical assault can create long-term effects and things that people need to deal for the rest of their life because they have been paralyzing. Many a times they have suffered injuries that are very serious. So I'm not minimizing the physical abuse at all. That's not the intention, but just to know that it has been my experience that many survivors just talk about the psychological, the stealing of their identity. They're losing their identity, their emotional and psychological abuse, the words that play like a tape recorder. I'm stupid, I'm dumb, I'm good for nothing, I'm never going to amount to anything, nobody is ever going to get to love me. That plays so heavily in a person's mind that when you have to go look for a job and you have to go and you have to go somewhere and you have to do things, you're fighting with all of those messages and the conditioning to react in a certain way even when the abusive person is not present. Their presence is there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I have had, and I don't know how many night lights have I handed out over the years here because it creates fear of the
Mm-hmm.
dark, especially when they were the abuse started in the evening time. Um, know that the psychological and the emotional and the verbal abuse are the ones that time and time again survivors have told me, I wish that they would have been physically abused instead
Yeah.
of doing this. I just there have been so many tears shared, and because of the outcome of that
Mm-hmm.
psychological abuse,
Mm-hmm.
being able to heal from that takes
Yeah.
time, and that's what causes the trauma.
Mm-hmm. And especially because the words are coming from someone that, number one, you've grown to trust and be vulnerable with. Number two, from someone that you love that is supposed to love you back. It can have that much more of an impact. So yeah, it's wild how difficult that can be. I had
So,
another point, but I lost my train of thought as I keep doing. Um, One thing that I wanted to ask you, because I know you and I have talked about this and it's interesting. So, um, I often hear the term, I follow a lot of things on Reddit about this, on Facebook, just, because I think it's interesting. It's an interesting topic. But a lot of times when people are referring to abusive partners, they will use the term narcissist, right? They don't often say my abuser. They'll say my partner is a narcissist, whatever. Why do you think that that term is so much more acceptable in society, and are they the same?
there are many forms of narcissist behaviors. There are three different forms of narcissist personalities.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easier because it is a mental health disorder.
Mm-hmm.
It's easier to, oh boy, I'm having a Spanglish moment, forgive me. It's
Dime en
easier
español, está bien.
to, it's easier to have a reason
Mm-hmm.
for the abuse
Mm-hmm.
that is not intentional. So it's easier to explain, oh, he has a narcissistic or she has a narcissistic personality, or they have a
Mm-hmm.
narcissistic personality. Then you have a reason now
Mm.
why it's happening.
Almost excuse them from it in a way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's almost
Or give
okay,
them
then you have a
compassion.
better understanding
Yeah.
because,
Mm-hmm.
and if we, and then you have a solution.
Right.
If they are provided with therapy, if it's a mental health disorder, how can they fix it? What kinds of things
Mm-hmm.
do I need to do at my end so it's not triggered? How do I need to behave? So it gives people a solution.
Mm-hmm.
It's easier
Mm-hmm.
to when a person, many people also getting off the topic of the narcissist for a moment, but many people also account to drugs or alcohol use for the
Yeah.
abuse.
Yep. I had a bad
Drug and
day. I was
alcohol,
drinking. Yep. Mm-hmm.
absolutely. Drug
Mm-hmm.
and alcohol doesn't change a person's personality.
Right.
It exacerbates the person's personality when they lose their inhibitions.
Mm-hmm.
With a narcissistic disorder, again, it's a mental health disorder. So then there's a reason for it. So that it's not the person's fault.
Yeah.
It's just that they have this disorder. You know, I would say that for a person that has a mental health disorder,
Mm-hmm.
there is not a mental health disorder is not something that you can control
True.
unless you're in therapy or medication or you're taking
Mm-hmm.
some. If that person is only narcissistic behind closed doors, and mental health disorder only shows behind closed doors, and everybody else in their community think that they're wonderful and great and awesome and
Yep.
friendly and compassionate and
They're saying the
helpful,
charm. Yep.
absolutely,
Mm-hmm.
then that is not mental health.
Yeah.
That is a person that knows exactly what they're doing and they choose to be who they are and they
Mm-hmm.
know where to do it. If their personal, their persona, their public persona is different than what they show behind closed doors,
Yeah.
then no, then that's not mental health. That is a person that chooses to be who they are.
Mm-hmm.
So be mindful of that.
I think that comes back to another interesting point that I've heard people often say that abuse is just an anger control issue. Like they just can't control their temper. They just, have a momentary loss of control or it's just a little spat. Like let's just, minimize it in that way. And it's not because like you said, if they can control when it happens and to whom it happens to and where it's happening, it's not a loss of control. If they couldn't actually control their anger, then it wouldn't be happening, only behind closed doors. So, yeah, yeah. There's so many other ways I could go, and I'm trying to be mindful of time because there's so many things that I want to talk about. If anyone does have any questions, feel free to ask in the chat in the Q&A feature. Let me see. What this is probably important because I know a lot of times people do share with me like, hey, I suspect that my loved one is experiencing abuse. I don't want to bring it up and make it awkward, but I also don't want to like have their partner hurt them. I don't know what to do. How do I make sure that they're supported, especially if they're difficult to reach because their partner is so controlling? So maybe they've stopped attending worship services. Maybe they aren't coming to class as often, whatever the case is. How might somebody from afar um, support someone that they experience, someone that they know suspect is experiencing abuse?
Don't allow the abusive person to isolate them from you.
Mm-hmm.
Is continuing to keep contact, continuing to be able to make that contact to, check in on the person, let them know that you're there,
Mm-hmm.
listening, being willing to listen without judgment.
Mhm.
being willing to, even if you slip them, and I tell you, I have the little tags of phone
Yeah.
numbers. I have a little bag in my car. I carry it with me. Usually I have, if I have a purse, I have one of those little um things in my
Complex.
purse.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes just handing the phone number of Turning Point. So when they're ready, it's such a tiny little thing that you
Mhm.
can do that can have a great impact. Um, Gently probing and letting them know, hey, I noticed that you no longer hang around with us, or you no longer, go to the family gatherings. What's going on? Is there something that you want to talk about? You're going to see the changes in personality, the changes of, being in that isolation,
Mhm.
um, being able to allow them to tell their story without you judging or telling them what to do.
Yeah.
Uh, Let them know what you're willing to do for them, whether is can they call you in the middle of the night if they need to get out? Can they come and just talk to you whenever they can, whenever the abusive person is not present? Can they give you a call? Would you
Mhm.
be able to listen? Be present. The abusive person is counting on everybody retreating and not being part. Um, don't buy into that.
Yeah.
The abusive person is not, don't take responsibility for that person being hurt. That abusive partner is going to hurt them no
Mhm.
matter what anybody does, because it's not under anyone's control. Only the abusive person can control that,
Right.
and they choose not to. So being able to be present, be there, um, giving them resources, you know, call in safety plan with them.
Mhm.
Know what safety planning is all about,
Mhm.
and help them to create a safety plan. Give
Mhm.
them information. Um, Invite them to places. Maybe they can meet you somewhere, when they go to take the kids to the pediatrician, or when they
Mhm.
go to the doctors, and maybe you
Grocery
can meet them
shopping.
there
Right. Right.
after
Right.
coffee.
Right.
It's just a matter of creating spaces
Yeah.
where the isolation
Yeah.
is not total.
Yeah. And I think sometimes being creative about how you provide those resources, like you said, the little bathroom phone tabs that we have, which if anyone wants or needs for their work, business, whatever, feel free to reach out to us. But like sometimes just that because it doesn't have our name on it, or, providing a pen with our phone number on it, or something that has the resource in maybe a discreet way that they can easily dismiss if the abuser does ask them about it. Like, oh, I just picked up a pen. I don't know where it's from or whatnot. Just, yeah, sometimes that you have to get a little creative and think out of the box with how you support. Yeah. Um,
Also, sorry.
no, go ahead.
Also, helping them to letting them know to pack a bag with,
Mm-hmm.
some clothing. Maybe you can hold the bag for them.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they can give you that bag with
Yeah.
clothing for maybe 3 to 5 days for themselves and their children, medication, life-saving medication that they may need, a little bit of money they can put in there, just in case of an emergency, just in case that they need to get out in a hurry. They don't have to be worrying about, oh my goodness, I have to get all these things. But packing that bag with an extra set of keys to the car, to the house, having an extra cell phone in that car, in that bag, even buying um, a phone, and know that we have the Verizon phones as well that we activate for people. I actually have one that is charging right now that I'm going to drop off at the hospital. So I'm meeting someone when they
Mm-hmm.
go to the doctor, so I'm meeting them there to do that. So just think outside the box, like as you mentioned, in how to help someone.
Yeah.
Um, but most of all, listen.
Yeah.
Uh, be willing to listen. without
Yeah.
judgment. Little by little, when the person feels supported and not alone, then they feel like they have someone on their side that is walking by their side, that is not telling them what to do like the abused person is, but that is allowing them to make their own decisions when
Mhm.
they feel ready.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
just being there.
Yeah. I think listening and letting them take the lead and kind of
Mhm.
following their guide, their role, for whatever they're ready for, because you can never push anyone to do anything that they're not ready for. And, sometimes they need that time, that space to process, to really be ready to make whatever decision it is. So yeah, yeah. I keep having all of these points. I'm like, oh, I want to say this too. Wait, no, I want to say this, but forget.
No, and also a compliment
Hmm.
or reminding them that how great they cook,
Hmm.
um, or how great they look,
Hmm.
or complimenting them on the little things. They
Just being
need
that,
to
like,
hear
yeah, go ahead.
motivating, encouraging words. They don't
Yeah,
need criticism. What they need is an encouraging word, letting them know that they don't deserve to live like that,
yeah,
that they are a person that deserves better.
yeah.
Uh, just those kinds of things. Words are, like I said before, words are really powerful and they can really lift a person up. What we want to do is to break that conditioning the abusive person has created and break that pattern in some way to uplift that person that's being abused, to know that they're not alone.
I think sometimes just, like you said, just listening, just being there, just trying to break that isolation can in itself help the survivor recognize and learn to feel what healthy looks like, what safe looks like. Just being that tangible reminder of this is not the only option. You have other people around you. You're not alone. Just, yeah, can be really important. Um, I know we're running low on time, so I'm going to ask two questions and I'll let you pick which one you want to share. So number one, do you have a success story or a moment in your 30 something years of service that you've given to Turning Point that really stands with you that you would want to share? Or alternatively, what's your why? Why do you think everyone should be engaged in this work? I know two good questions to choose from, right?
Yeah, well, and maybe I can answer both.
Okay.
So, the why, we cannot do this alone. We need our community. Um, as heavy as it is also very rewarding to be able to see what a kind word can do in a person's life. It's absolutely amazing what just being there, being present, and listening can do. So, certainly, we cannot do this alone. Um, just know that we need the help. Our community needs help. Our survivors and their children need the help. Um, the other with a person that comes in mind right now, and I know I have like 3 minutes, so I'm going to give you the short version.
That's okay, no
But I,
worries.
but I met a young woman, I would say about 3 years ago, and I couldn't even recognize her the first time I saw her because the beating had been so severe um, that her face was pretty disfigured. And I know that Marlena was walked her through the process in the PFA and then the criminal hearings and all of those things. And
Oh,
the first time that I saw her, she wouldn't look at me in the face. She wouldn't. She just looked down. And then from there on, it took her some time for her to actually lift her head. And she wouldn't even sit in the chair. She would sit on the floor when she would come in. That's where
Wow.
she felt safe. So I sat on the floor with her. That's
Hmm.
where we sat for months. We sat on the floor. And that's where we had conversations. And, little by little, she would start bringing in paperwork that she needed to organize. And one day she helped me to help her to organize the paperwork. So I knew
So,
that I was earning her trust.
mhm.
So we got folders and we started organizing. And from the floor, we moved to our conference room.
Oh.
And from that conference room, that's where all the paper spread all over the tables. And, we would have conversations, and I just let her talk about whatever she wanted to talk about. I never
Mhm.
pushed, I never asked. It was just taking it one piece at a time, one moment at a time.
Yeah.
I can tell you that today that young woman is a manager of one of our local businesses.
That's awesome.
She has taken college courses and took the trauma informed certification. She connected with the mental health providers to help her to deal with the trauma. Um,
Mhm.
she recently bought her car. She is living on her own.
Mhm.
And, she has become such a powerful young woman. She's mending some of the relationship with her um, family. They were
Mhm.
broken because of the many years of abuse.
Yeah.
The drug addiction, she was able to leave that behind
Mhm.
because that was her way of escaping
Yeah.
what she was living through for many, many years.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely amazing to be able to be a part of that, to be able to allow her to let me in. And eventually she did. But all I did was listen with no judgment. And I met her where she was at.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
so proud of her.
That's wonderful. I love that. And you're right. You really did, like you said, meet her where she was at, met her on the floor and, kind of allowed her to lead when she was comfortable to, felt safe enough to move to the conference room and, organize papers together and going from that to just the confidence that it built in her and creating that safety where she felt comfortable now leading others. That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. I love that. Um,
Absolutely. She attended the support groups and she has
mhm,
been an inspiration for the other women that they
mhm,
can do it too. And she
mhm.
has powerful voice and very powerful stories. So
That's awesome. Well, for anyone still here, if you are a survivor of abuse or if you're currently experiencing abuse, please know that we are here if you ever need us. We hope you never do. But if you do, we are here. All of our services are free, are confidential. I just put in the chat our Turning Point 24/7 helpline. If you have any questions, concerns, feel free to call our website, our upcoming events calendar, and then our social media handles. So if you ever want to follow us on anything or see upcoming events, trainings, whatnot that we have, or just, want to talk to somebody about what you're experiencing and need some support, feel free to reach out. Thank you again so much, Miriam, for being here.
you're
As always, I learn from your, wisdom and experience. So thank you, and thank you to everyone who attended. We hope you have a great and safe day. So,
Thank you everyone for being here. It's a pleasure. And just reach out if you have any questions, by all means.
yeah.
I'm the only Miriam here, so if you wanted to talk to me, you can certainly call.